All right. Just trying to get situated on my screen here. Right now, it's kind of dark. All right, I call the Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 Council Finance Investment Parking Committee to order. First up will be the approval of the June 27th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right. Any discussion on those? All right. And anyone opposed? All right. So those are approved. Up next will be Chance Berthume with the Stormwater Capacity Grant. Go ahead.
Good evening, council and everybody else. So every 2 years, the Department of Ecology provides a stormwater capacity grant that's meant to help implement the stormwater permit requirements. So it helps offset our operational costs. This year, they are offering us $130,000 or up to $130,000 for a 2-year period. It starts July 1st, 2023 and runs through March 31st, 2025. So expenses, it covers expenses such as staff time, equipment, supplies, training, and various other things. I do plan on using this to help offset costs for temporary staff to complete maintenance on some of our stormwater facilities this year and next year. Purpose of being here tonight is ask for permission to apply for the grants. It's submittal is due, or application is due by September, so I have plenty of time to get it done. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions.
Yeah.
Just speak up.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there a city matching component? What's our obligation for this?
Zero match grant, so
Perfect.
it's 100%. Yeah.
Gotta love those. Okay, that's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Eric, any questions?
Nope.
All right. And then Chance, you might have actually said it, but you kind of said this year we were offered this much. What have we gotten in the past? Is this on par, up, down?
It's varied over the years. I've been doing this for the last 12 years, I guess. One time it was 50,000 for a 2-year period, and that was kind of the standard grant. I had one that was 130,000 before in previous grant cycles, and last cycle they came out with a $70,000 grant, and then 2 months before the end of it they offered another 62,500. So it's nice that they're starting out on 130,000 this time, and this is a good, definitely beneficial to the city. We could use those funds.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. No more questions. And then next we've got Hans Nilsson with the Astound agreement for dark fiber expansion.
Yes, thank you for having me here. Good afternoon. So let me get I've got a presentation to kind of liven things up a little bit. So let me get that started. Perfect. So I'm here to speak to you about the City of Bremerton networking infrastructure upgrade request using dark fiber. This is a phase 2 of a continuation of a project that I brought to you back in February of 2022. And a little bit of the history is phase 1 was specifically for wastewater treatment plants and 33 of its locations and sites. Since the execution of that contract, Astound has been busy coordinating and installing the dark fiber lines throughout the city. And I'm excited to announce that we'll be lighting up the first couple of sites in the coming weeks. So that brings us to up to date and on past progress and today's request. To kind of recap of what dark fiber is the fiber optic infrastructure that has not yet been lit and requires the customer rather than the service provider to maintain and operate the equipment required to light the fiber. In addition, it enables us to manage critical elements of our network. It offers better resilience and security as we do not share the connection with anyone. It provides us with a maximum level of flexibility and control to support as needs change over time. It gives us the ability to add additional city departments to share the existing infrastructure. It increases data throughput to allow critical areas to have, for example, voice over IP or IP video surveillance for centralized management. And it potentially would allow us to stand up free public hotspots in the event of an emergency. So the project, or the phase 2, consists of 43 routes that can be divided into 3 logical groups. 14 sites are for the wastewater treatment plant to connect their remaining sites. 9 sites and routes is for City of Bremerton IT to expand their network redundancy. And 21 sites is for the wastewater resources to connect their sites to the city dark fiber, including an alternative path around Silverdale, which adds a great deal of redundancy to the entire city in the event of a catastrophic failure of Warren Avenue and Manette Bridge, allowing us to connect to all of East Bremerton infrastructure. So this slide kind of recaps the wastewater treatment plant reasons why we initially came to you. They had a mixture of multiple communication vendors and different communication means and hardware, and it was just to kind of align and standardize equipment. And they had a lot of downtimes and failures during this because of this communication. So that was a big part of kind of contributing to the increase and offsetting the increased cost. And then now, why is IT to looking at expanding our communication and also vendor redundancy? Is it gives us increased reliability and uptime because redundant network connections ensure that the event of a primary connection fails or even experiences issues, the organization's remote sites can seamlessly switch to an alternate connection. It also gives us enhanced performance and bandwidth. Redundant networks can also operate simultaneously to distribute network traffic across multiple connections, preventing bottlenecks and congestions. And it also adds disaster recovery and business continuity and route diversification. Because in case there is infrastructure damage caused by vegetation, or as in many cases, human factor, either by a excavator or most recently on the way down to Gorst, someone thought that fiber was copper and they pulled it and was burning it to make some money. Overall, redundant network connections offer increased reliability, improved performance, enhanced disaster recovery capabilities, and geographical diversity. These benefits are crucial for larger organizations such as us to maintain uninterrupted connectivity and ensure smooth operations. And then water resources, their kind of reasons behind everything is to reduce the hardware needs and stop the need for having to purchase new modems to keep up with cellular carriers. It eliminates the need to pay for data transferred. As we continue to expand and grow, these types of networks that water resources use are designed to pay per data usage. The more data we collect, the more traffic goes through the connection, the more we pay. It gives us increased reliability and uptime, and it reduces reliance on third-party vendor and reduces associated expenses. It also greatly improves performance and bandwidth, gives us route diversity, and it also aligns ourselves with the rest of the city infrastructure. Just as in the wastewater treatment case, we're looking at some of the financial benefits of potentially switching, is that this information was extrapolated from an 8-month sample period, and we project to have about 305 communication failures, whereof 105 of those will be after hours and about 200 will be during regular operating hours. So these failures may come as a negative impact to operations and maintenance, both as overtime and as lost staff time, which Cami is here to speak about. So I'm going to take just a little pause here on my slideshow, and we'll bring Cami in.
Oh, there we go. I just had to be patient. It wasn't responding fast enough. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to stress as well the regulatory impacts from those communication losses, aside from impacts to, of course, our staffing. When communications are down, our staff are required to visit critical treatment processes and water quality compliance sites every 4 hours around the clock to ensure that operations are within specifications. Not only is this exhausting for our standby operators working around the clock, but this also pulls operators off of important scheduled or unscheduled maintenance and facility inspections during regular operating hours. Of most concern, WAC 246, 290, 694, 4, and 7 requires continuous monitoring of these treatment processes and water quality as part of the criteria for the surface water system to remain unfiltered. Communication outages involving these processes that extend beyond 24 hours puts the city out of compliance and our ability to remain unfiltered at risk. So in addition to the financial costs and physical costs to our staff, there's also a regulatory risk involved in not establishing reliable communications.
Okay. Thank you, Cami. So jumping back to the presentation. So since February of 2022, a lot of contributing factors has changed. As we know, there's been an increase of interest, inflation rates. Astound has needed to renegotiate rates with their contractors, which has meant increased costs of supplies and materials, labor costs, and so forth. In addition, PSE prediction costs has significantly increased. Why do I mention PSE? Well, PSE owns the power poles that essentially Astound leases to connect their overhead fiber cables to. So there's increased pole application costs, make ready work and the pole replacements if PSE deems that they're too old to add additional cables to. And prices have consistently gone up over a year, and we expect them to continue at a rise at about 5% a year. Since about June of 2022, I've spent several hours with Astound getting to today's proposal. In early quoting, I didn't feel that we would be able to come to you today and make a business case because the projected build-out cost for phase 2 would have been about $1.54 million. This would have meant that the monthly reoccurring cost per site would have been around $585 per month per site. But after several route and re-engineering revisions, we were able to come to a build-out cost of about $1.16 million. In addition, our proposal is to inject some additional capital project funds to help pay for the fiber build-out and change the term of the contracts of these specific sites to 20 years. We've essentially by doing so, we've essentially been able to bring down the monthly reoccurring cost to $300 per month per site. So I mentioned that I was proposing to have some capital improvement project money to help offset the initial build out cost. So this slide demonstrates the one-time amount of CIP funds suggested from each department. So the amount contributed by each department aligns with the total number of sites that they're adding. The next slide highlights essentially the proposed option 3 and how we are, by injecting a one-time $300,000 CIP expenditure, we're essentially reducing our monthly reoccurring costs per site per month. So instead of having the $408 a month, we're doing a one-time injection of 300,000 and extending it to a 20-year contract. We bring it down to a $300 per month per site. If we extrapolate that out and look at the total savings we are gaining by having the same contract in place for 20 years and injecting the 300,000 versus using the same contract we used in phase 1, that savings in comparison would be, $1.557 million. So this slide shows the implementation of the Astound fiber presence after phase 1 is fully completed, which is real soon. And then this slide shows the proposed areas in green and dark blue of the addition, and red actually, of where we're adding in phase 2, if approved. And this combination shows what the final infrastructure coverage would include. So that being said, and that's the last slide I have, I'm here to answer any questions or anything that you may have. I also want to kind of highlight that, I want to defer a couple of the financial CIP monies questions to Mike/Sherry, and she knows a better way to answer the funding, where it would be coming from.
Yesterday when Mike debriefed me on this project, he stated that the monies would be coming from existing fund balances. And then I believe we discussed yesterday that on one of them, there would be no net effect, right? For one of them.
Right.
Because we saved money on phase 1 or.
Yeah, so for example, in wastewater treatment plants and also in water resources, correct me if I'm wrong, I apologize about that sound, Cami, when we were planning the 2023 budget almost a year ago, we were anticipating to have Astound be essentially ready to launch the phase 2 at this point and completed at this point. But there were some delays, and that's okay. So we had anticipated a higher expenditure in our telecommunications budget. So in essence, wastewater treatment plant has 8 months of projected expenditures that didn't happen in their telecommunications budget, and we would be moving that money into this project. And the same thing goes for water resources. And for IT, we have don't quote me on that, but we have an end of fund balance of about $500,000. And we've been asked that we should reduce that. So, and this is, already been, what's the term I'm looking for, Sherry? It's essentially been collected.
So the rates with IT always have a built-in for future. So we've already collected within fund balance. Is that what you're
Yeah,
Yeah, so we built in some future costs and for IT rates to other departments throughout the years, and we have a fund balance available for this project, from my understanding.
so that should summarize the financial aspect of how to pay for it and making those CIP portions.
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions from council members? Eric, go
None
ahead.
yet.
All right, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so here's the question. I have several. So no surprise. What happens if we say no?
Well, we continue using the split infrastructure. We have wastewater treatment plant transitioned to, well, we'll have 33 out of and 13 of their sites and not transitioned. So we're still dealing with multiple vendors and the issues that we were trying to move away from on that side. On IT sides, this is there's two major components that we're achieving. Our capital money that we're putting in is adding an alternate or a diverse path into Oyster Bay. We have currently received our inner site communications from Comcast Xfinity, and we have dark fiber with them. When they go down, Oyster Bay goes down, which also brings down Fire Station 2, and essentially anything down Old Belfair Highway, which has a great impact on water resources. And by adding the Astound, we're adding an alternate path into that facility so we can continue operating if one vendor has an issue. The other big one is that we're finally able to get fiber out to BCAT, which they have never been connected to high speed. We've had cable connections, we've had all sorts of different issues. The good thing about this kind of dark fiber that we're getting is you can do what's called multiplexing, which essentially takes one strand of fiber, and I believe you can split it into 9 separate fiber strands by essentially modifying the wavelength of the fiber. So in essence, you can have multiple communication streams down to one site without them impacting each other. This is huge for BCAT because, yes, as you know, we have our council meetings at Norm Dix, and in the preparations of going high definition and everything like that, we can now essentially get a good quality signal back to their hub that then can be distributed out. And for water resources portion, they can continue operating on their existing radios. And yes, there is the outages, downtimes, and things of that nature. The good thing about transitioning them is that it aligns them with the rest of the city, so that as you know, for example, the IT department expands and we have better consistency on knowing the infrastructure and really the security of everything is more centrally controlled. So, and Cam, I'll let you speak to more of your department.
Is something unique to the water utility, water resources communication, as opposed to wastewater treatment plant, is we have kind of I think a more complex communication map, if you will, pathways. We have the wastewater treatment plant has a central hub at their headquarters. It sends out and pings each of the sites individually, and that communication is a one-line communication, comes right back to the headquarters. Their remote sites do not have to communicate with each other, and they don't. In water resources, our remote sites need to be able to communicate not just with headquarters, but also with each other. An example is a water level in a reservoir. A water level in a reservoir, when it drops to a set point, it sends out a signal to the pump station. It's time to turn on the pumps. That then communicates with the source at the well and pulls the water out of the well and fills the reservoir till the reservoir hits the fill line and then gives it the signal to shut off. So we have a lot of remote sites that need to communicate with each other in order to operate successfully. And our current system is pretty cumbersome and not really as sophisticated and as reliable as we'd like it to be. It's very straight line. We don't have a lot of redundancy that would be desirable. And with that amount of data being transferred, fiber is really the most reliable. We've got a lot of duplexing and multiplexing going on, as Hans alluded to, and our current setups, we're using them almost to the max of their capability. I just wanted to provide that extra information.
So thank you for that. I was not familiar with Astound. I just Googled it. It used to be called Wave Cable. Apparently they went private. I had no idea. So, okay. What little I know, which is very little, about fiber is that you can have thousands and thousands of data transmissions right over that fiber cable, whereas in your proposal, the city has its own fiber cable, and we're only going to use a fraction of the capability of that cable. That's what it sounds like to me. 300 some lines when you could have the traffic of, I don't know how many lines, Hans. I guess it depends on the thickness of the cable, but I would think thousands. What I understand the security as far as dedicated private line, whatnot. Is there any way to subsidize the cost of this by using the excess capacity? For example, and this is maybe way off base, but basically selling an excess capacity back to the provider so they can use it for other subscribers. Is that a possibility?
So, yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So when they install fiber to each site, they only install either 6 or 12 strands, which is about the thickness of a USB cable. And that just serves that specific site. Then it goes to the pole, and which then it connects at a junction box. You may have seen the big black things hanging up in the sky, and you've got coils of cords hanging and other kind of a safety loop. What happens there is that these smaller cables go into a junction box, and then they're cross-connected or spliced together into a bigger loop. So it can go up to a 24 pair, 20 or 48 count, 96 count, 196. It can go up to, I don't even know how many counts of fiber. But when we are essentially just paying for one strand of that big trunk cable throughout. And part of, why they are actually still giving us a very favorable rate is they feel that probably the city of Bremerton, they can expand and provide additional services that will help recoup their initial expense in other monthly reoccurring customers. When I say they're giving us a favorable rate, I recently attended an IT conference in Kennewick, and we got into a conversation about dark fiber and what other agencies are doing. And for example, the city of Monroe was quoted by Astound, by the same salesperson, at about $1,300 a month.
Okay.
So
I think I'm understanding the business model, Hot. So let me just summarize it in layman's terms. Astound doesn't necessarily have all this fiber running pole to pole, and they're going to use our buy-in to help subsidize the cost of the larger scale development of the fiber throughout the network. Does that make sense?
correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, let's go to our costs on the IT, on the city level. You provided an analysis, but just in summary terms, you got whatever that cost is, 1,000,001 or whatever the number is. Are you saying that we're better off over the next 30 years versus our current business model? Or is there a savings, did you say in your summary? Or is it a break even?
So it might help that I can bring up the slide to speak of. I think this is what I'm talking about. So let me clear. Okay, so if I do laser pointer, okay. So if we were to essentially stay with the same contract of a 10-year contract and not injecting any upfront costs, the city would be paying $480 a month for the next 10 years per site.
No, but I understand that, but that's if we went fiber. If we just continued, see, this is the analysis I don't quite understand.
Okay.
What are our current costs versus, your best case scenario if we switch to fiber?
Okay, so yeah, there is not the current costs is hard to estimate over that period of time. There is, so maybe if we go to let's see here, is this is wastewaters. So let me they had, part of their justification is that with their multiple vendors and their communication failures that they have, let me go back to this one here, because they have the different vendors include, cellular, DSL and CenturyLink, Comcast cable modem connection, and each of these having different maintenance windows. And because some of these are, under a more of a residential service, and most services don't operate in the middle of the night or on a 24/7 environment as we do, they do their nighttime maintenance in the middle of the night. These are often unannounced, or there might be an email that's sent out, saying there might be a 5-minute window. Well, in that 5-minute window, that's a lot for sewer overflow potentially happening. So that initiates all of those on-call processes. So that would add to it. Yes, we don't have an updated what would it be over with the 13 remaining sites, but I don't have the data to show what 13 sites would equate to be. But they were showing that let's see here. I think I have some numbers here. Let me look. I'm looking for my cursor. So yeah, in a 12-month period, they had about $8,300 in overtime, not considering the daytime failures and the time it takes to pull people away and from preventative maintenance and things that are scheduled. And as for water resources, I think I have a little bit more data I can speak to of that. So yes, we have the projected failures coming in at about $23,500 a year. In addition to, if we take the 200 daytime failures with an estimated of 570 lost staff hours, that would equate to about $23,700 in lost salary time. And the current expenses for the Verizon cellular modem are about $20,000 a year. That adds up to about $67,200 per year. The projected expenditure with Astound for water resources is $75,600, which means that it's a delta expenditure of increase expenditure of about $8,000.
Yeah, okay.
7,000.
Right, so that makes sense, and then you don't have all that overtime arguably, it's a more reliable system. But
Yeah.
you're not counting for that capital cost that the city's being asked to put in. So you have ongoing costs are going to be slightly higher, but less when you don't take into account the overtime that you can avoid. But you have that $1.1 million capital contribution. Is that not correct?
No, sorry. I lost a monitor, so I don't know if you lost my video feed. Are you still?
Yeah, I can see you. Yeah.
Okay, so let me get this one over here and just so I'm reset. Share here. So, so to be clear, the the total expenditure is only a one-time $300,000. Yes, the number I mentioned earlier was the Astound build-out cost of 1.16 million.
Okay. Oh, okay. This is their cost. We're
Yeah,
gonna do an upfront cost of 300,000 and then have what we're talking about as annual costs for being in the system. Does that summarize it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So basically you're asking for us to approve an expenditure of whatever you mentioned, 300-some thousand, not 1.1.
That's correct.
Okay. Now it's the comfort level is back. Okay.
Can I ask a question on that? Kind of right on that same piece.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm actually done. Go ahead.
Jennifer, if you don't mind. So when we look at, when it says monthly recurring.
No, not at all. Go ahead.
Per site, is the site the 40-ish? Are we looking at 40 sites times $300 a month?
That's correct.
So that's, what's that, 7,000 a month? I mean, so that basically each site is almost like getting really like high end broadband to your home.
Oh, it's yes, it is getting top level potential broadband to your home. Yes, we are only going to be utilizing like even 1 gigabit. I would dream to have 1 gigabit connectivity to my home.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably more robust than we need, but there's nothing sort of in between anyways. And
No, it's the same. It's
yeah.
the same cost to go slower at 100 megabits,
Yeah.
and it's outdated technology. So,
Do you know what we pay monthly for these sites that we're going to switch over?
it varies because of the different carriers.
So
Um,
this is going to go to full council, yes?
yes.
So that would probably be, even if you guys could, put together a guesstimate, that would probably, because, our concern is always when we're spending money. So if we're already spending 5,000 a month, and now this is going to be 7 for this improved closed loop, are the current 40 sites, is that on more of an intranet or a closed circuit, or are we using the internet to get there?
The ones from phase 1.
Yeah, well, no, the stuff that we're about to take care of. So,
They're in a mixture. Water resources is over or is over Verizon's infrastructure in a private cloud.
okay.
Water resources is over public internet through a VPN. Some is over Comcast private network, similar to Verizon's.
Okay, yeah, so if there's some way to get a little bit of that, I think council really appreciates being able to really see what the annual change is going to be moving forward. I completely support this. My son's actually well, he's not doing it right now, but he's done a fiber optic installs for big like these big auto plants they have in like South Carolina and stuff. He's been doing that for years, but he just jumped to some really cool project. And then and I've got a bit of an IT background, used to teach security too, so I understand how nice a closed loop, especially in these days of malware and all that kind of stuff, just to really know that we've got better control. And I love the redundancy too, as crazy as it sounds, about possibly losing both bridges, but it's
well, and it's worse than that, actually. I just discovered that it's just Minette.
yeah.
All of our infrastructure goes over Minette.
Oh yeah. Was that a change that we had did it used to go over Warren?
No, I don't think so. I think it's only CenturyLink that has, and Kitsap PUD that has going over Warren.
Yeah.
So
Anyways, so yeah, I don't have any more questions. I do see Cami has her hand up. Go ahead, Cami.
Yes, thank you. Something, Hans, we can also put in your presentation that would be helpful, I think, is for water resources, getting fiber to all of our critical sites has been a long-term plan. And the way we've been doing it is really piecemeal, which is not very efficient. It doesn't allow you for a nice planned out network. And when you do it piecemeal, it's very expensive. So, and it's only going to get more expensive going forward. So we were planning to spend money, I guess is what I'm saying anyway, although it would require your approval to do so. But some of that capital expenditure is often related to a project we were doing anyway. Pump Station 14, which is our new pump station being built. Us taking on the capital cost of just doing the fiber as part of that project is our investment as well. So it's that's how we've been able to incorporate some of that capital expenditure. So I don't know if that additional information is useful, but just wanted to share that with you.
So I had one more question, and that is, are we protected from rate increases for the 30-year duration? In other words, we're spending all this money, this $300,000 contribution, and all of a sudden, whatever the company's called now, says, oh, by the way, we're going to double your rates, and we're kind of locked in because we just had a sunk cost of $300,000.
It is my understanding that it is a contract rate written at the 300 a month for the duration of the contract. I would defer any other to legal. I would say taxes would be the exemption. So if any applicable taxes apply.
Oh, sure. But the duration of the contract is again, how many years?
The second contract is for 20 years.
Wow. So there's no inflation increase or anything like that?
No.
All right. So that sounds like a good selling point for your presentation in front of the full council.
And I do know that council and legal doesn't like to go into such long-term contracts because what happens if we no longer need this site? The contract for government customers specifically state if there is no funding for the line item, that we can essentially exit without a penalty.
Okay, and that brings up, no one can predict the future, but there could be technologies 5, 10 years, 15 years down the road where people are saying, people were stringing these fiber optic lines over telephone poles. Isn't that crazy? You know what I'm saying? Because they could.
Yes, there is possibilities of that happening. I will say to date, we don't know of anything faster than the speed of light. Fiber does operate at the speed of light.
Okay, so hang on. I just saw the Flash movie with my son a few weeks ago, so back off on that comment. So, yeah, anyway.
Good one. Good one.
But the other promised technology, 5G, I don't think is all that's been cracked up to be so far. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, and I will say 4G is what Cami is operating on. They're looking at, if they're staying on that the potential expenditure to upgrade their radios to 5G, which has an expense too. And then, yes, in the commercial side, or sorry, in the customer side, 6G is already out, or is being rolled out. What does that mean? So it's in that cellular business customer, you're at the mercy of what the vendors are doing. Here, we're kind of pulling back and saying, yes, we're doing dark fiber and we're doing 1 gigabit. The current max you can buy, and just by switching 2 little receivers on both ends, can go up 100 times faster. So we kind of control at the speed we want to operate in.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Your comment made me think of when I bought my very first computer. They had 2 86s and 3 86s, and the salesman said, 386, you'll never need anything that fast. And I think I got one place.
That's right. And then they had the 486, and then the 5 series were called Pentiums. Remember?
Yeah.
Bunch of old timers here.
Oh, I got the P66 and P75.
Oh, that's right, Pentiums. Yeah.
All right. So again, I think that council, the same kind of questions we asked, we'll want to know like what this really looks like. What are we committing ourselves for? And because the slide shows great savings, but the savings is over the first option that we started with on this. So, and I don't think it's going to be savings. It could possibly be savings over where we're at now, but I think it's going to be comparable or a little bit of a, we're going to be able to, have fewer vendors to pay, by consolidating this next batch of sites and bringing, I guess, some new ones on. So, and thanks for your presentation today.
Yeah, no, the plan is to bring this to study session on the 9th. Yep, the 9th and the 16th is the plan.
And may I make one request too for the presentation? I think discussing the contract points would be helpful too, like right off the bat, letting them know it's a 20-year contract, but we do have the option, I don't know what to call it, like a no penalty option or a walk away clause or whatever you would call that in there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm gonna run it through legal and specifically ask them to see if they want to mention something of that or highlight something that makes sense to
Great.
us non-legalese people.
Got it. Thank you for that.
And then kind of at what Cammie reiterated too is that, even though you're clearly calling this phase 2, just really clearly maybe stating that like this is something, this is something we've already decided to do. This is the next one we're doing. So
Yes, it's 2 different things. It kind of aligns with the rest of the plan. It was a holistic plan that we brought forward. We had hoped at keeping it at the same rates, but unfortunately, rates and things changed over that time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Hold on a second. Anybody else on staff have any other updates for us? No. You guys got that budget done yet? No. All right. Any council members have anything for the good of the order?
For the good of the order, thank you, Counselor Goodnow, for chairing today. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for making me wish I had an ice cream. So, all right. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.